Picture an antelope, lungs burning, staggering to a halt in the shimmering midday heat of the African savanna. And then, walking calmly out of that same heat, comes the strangest predator this planet has ever produced. A slow, soft, two-legged animal with almost no fur, and it has just won a race that lasted for hours. That animal is you, and the secret weapon that let your ancestors run down a faster, stronger creature was not claws or fangs or even speed. It was naked, sweating skin. So here is the real question. Why, out of nearly every mammal on Earth, did we alone give up our fur? Start with the biggest myth of all, because you are not actually hairless, not even close. Count the hair follicles on your body and compare them to a chimpanzee, and you have roughly the same number. Measured directly, human follicle density comes out essentially indistinguishable from a chimp's. You are carrying somewhere between 2 and 3 million hair follicles right now. The difference is not how many hairs you have, it is what those hairs became. On a chimp, most follicles grow thick, dark, pigmented hairs, a real coat. On you, almost all of them shrank into tiny, fine, see-through wisps called vellus hairs, a faint fuzz that catches the sun. So, we are not the naked ape. We are the ape with an invisible coat. And that tiny distinction changed the entire course of our species. Swap a thick coat for near-invisible fuzz, and you unlock something extraordinary. You can sweat like no other creature alive. Your skin holds between 2 and 4 million eccrine sweat glands, and their density is roughly 10 times higher than in a chimpanzee. 10 times! Those glands push watery sweat straight onto bare skin, and as it evaporates, it pulls heat off your body with brutal efficiency. A thick coat ruins that. Fur traps the moisture and blocks the airflow, and the cooling barely works. So, the leading explanation for why we lost our fur, backed by the Smithsonian and by anthropologist Nina Jablonski, is thermoregulation, plain old heat management. After our ancestors stood up and started walking, the shady forests of equatorial Africa gave way to open, sun-blasted grassland, and out there overheating could kill you. The individuals with less fur and more sweat glands could shed that heat, keep moving and survive, and over countless generations, the coat quietly disappeared. Now, think about what that let us do. Most predators on the savanna are sprinters. A lion explodes forward in a burst, and if it does not catch you fast, it has to stop, overheating, with no way to cool down mid-chase. But you, the sweaty naked ape, do not need to stop. Around 2 million years ago, early members of our genus, Homo, evolved a body built for distance, and researchers David Bramble and Daniel Lieberman argued that we became endurance runners, which leads to one of the most astonishing hunting strategies ever described, called persistence hunting. You do not outrun the antelope. You cannot. You jog after it, steady and relentless, through the hottest part of the day. The animal sprints away, but it is wearing a fur coat in 40-degree heat, and it cannot pant and gallop at the same time. So it stops to cool down, and every time it stops, you catch up and push it into another sprint before it has recovered. Hour after hour, you're cool and it is not, until it simply collapses from heatstroke and you walk up and take it. Hunters of the Kalahari were documented doing exactly this within living memory. Your bare skin was the weapon, but there was an even hungrier reason to stay cool. Your brain. It makes up about 2% of your body weight, yet it burns around 20% of your energy. A hot brain is a brain in danger. And here's the timing that ties it together. Right around that same 2 million year mark, As our ancestors ran across the open, our brains began ballooning in size. Jablonski and her colleagues argue those two things are connected. You could not afford a big, heat-sensitive brain without a way to keep it from cooking, and losing the fur may have been the very thing that let our brains grow toward the size they are today. So when did all this happen? This is where the detective work gets strange, because fur does not fossilize, and neither does skin. So scientists went looking for clues hidden in genetics, and in one case, in lice. Geneticist Alan Rogers studied a gene called MC1R, which helps control skin color. In African populations, this gene is locked down, barely varying at all, because any change that lightened the skin would have been deadly under that fierce sun. By counting the slow, silent mutations that pile up around it like ticks on a clock, Rogers and his colleagues estimated that dark skin swept through our ancestors around 1.2 million years ago. And dark skin only becomes necessary once you lose the fur that was shielding your skin. So that date is really a shadow of an earlier event. Under the coat, hominin skin was probably pale, like the skin beneath a chimp's fur. Expose that pale skin to tropical ultraviolet light, and it becomes a death sentence of sunburn, damage, and destroyed folate. So the fur went first, and then dark, protective pigment evolved to cover the newly bared skin. Losing our fur did not just make us sweaty. It gave us the first dark human skin. And then there are the lice. Humans have two kinds: head lice that live in the hair on your scalp, and body lice that live and lay their eggs in clothing. Body lice literally cannot exist without clothes. So if you can date when body lice split off from head lice, you can date roughly when humans started wearing clothing. Geneticists did exactly that, and the estimates land somewhere between 80,000 and 170,000 years ago. So line that up. We lost our fur more than 1 million years ago, but we did not put clothing back on until relatively recently. For most of that vast stretch, we walked the earth truly bare, our own dark skin the only covering we had. Not everyone agrees that heat is the whole story, and the rival idea is weirdly convincing. It is called the parasite hypothesis, championed by Mark Pagel and Walter Bodmer. To a flea, a thick coat is a warm, sheltered jungle, perfect for ticks, lice, and fleas, all of which carry disease. Shave it to bare skin and the parasites have nowhere to hide, and you can pick them off. Early humans lived in fixed camps in large groups, a paradise for spreading parasites, and we are the only primate that suffers from fleas. So less fur could have meant fewer bloodsuckers and fewer deadly infections. And Pagel and Bodmer add a twist. Once bare skin caught on, it became attractive. Smooth, clean, parasite-free skin was like a billboard advertising good health to a mate. In their view, sexual selection then polished off whatever fur natural selection had left behind. Which raises the obvious question. If bare skin was so great, why did we keep the hair on top of our heads? The answer, once again, is heat, but flipped around. When you stand upright, the sun beats straight down on the top of your skull, right above that precious overheating brain. Jablonski's team tested this with heated mannequins and wigs, from straight hair to tightly coiled hair. They found that hair on the scalp, and especially tightly curled hair, works like a parasol. It blocks the sun's radiation from hitting your head while still letting air circulate and heat escape underneath. The hair we kept and the fur we lost were solving the exact same problem from opposite directions. If you love this kind of stuff, subscribe, because I go deep on a new question about being human every single week. So think about what your skin really is. It is not a flaw, not something evolution forgot to finish. It is one of the most radical pieces of engineering in the animal kingdom. Your ancestors traded a coat for a cooling system, and in doing so, they gained the ability to run down prey under a sun that stopped everything else in its tracks, to grow a brain enormous enough to ask this very question, and to eventually paint that bare skin with the first dark pigment, and later drape it in clothing. Every one of those tiny invisible hairs on your arm is a fossil of that ancient bargain. You are not the animal that lost its fur. You are the animal that discovered it never really needed it. And the next time you break a sweat on a hot day and feel that faint chill as it dries, remember, that is not weakness. That is a 2 million-year-old superpower, still keeping you cool.